الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Hi and welcome to Worlds Apart, a program that is dedicated to speaking the truth in love. I'm your host, Rommel Ghassain, and today we have with us Daniel Sciesta, who will be discussing with us the important models of grace or Sharia. First of all, welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to be able to have you come here and give us these wonderful talks.
Likewise for me, really. It's a pleasure.
Now, you've heard the topic for this episode. Sharia or grace, which is the better working model? We know that Sharia is from the Quran, and that's what Muslims want. They believe that is the best model for or system for man to work under. And for the Christian, the equivalent is grace, and they believe this is the best model. If I can first of all start off by asking you, please define Sharia to our viewers. What does it mean?
Well, Sharia is the holistic or Islamic law that includes everything in our life and wants to rule over it and make sure that everything is according to Allah's law and Allah's values. In state level, in country level, government is responsible to enforce Sharia and make sure that everybody is following Sharia, and in family level, father is called to do that because he's the only one, or because he is male, he can fulfill the covenant of Allah. He is responsible for that. So everybody really must align himself with Sharia, and Sharia doesn't believe in freedom, because in freedom you have a choice to choose something, but Sharia says that everything was written from eternity for you. You need to live according to that. You need to you don't need to decide, and that's why you see that many Islamists, radical Muslim or committed Muslim, believe that freedom belongs to hell, really, and freedom is not compatible with Sharia. And you go to the website and you read even the comments of some Islamic commentators and scholars. You can see that.
So it's very opposite.
It's very opposite. It's just the 100-degree different. Grace is so different to Sharia.
Yes. And so are there any working examples of Sharia around the world?
There are working examples, like Iran is ruled by Sharia law. Pakistan, the reason Pakistan is separated themselves from India to be under the rule of Sharia law. Saudi Arabia, Sudan, and these are the contemporary examples. But sadly, that law has caused the life of hundreds of thousands of people, especially in country Iran. Before the revolution, we were just so much deceived, and sheikhs, mullahs, and clergies, they said to us, "You're going to have freedom. Sharia is the symbol of freedom." We didn't know they were going to use taqiyya, those holy deception, Islamic taqiyya. And we just trusted them, really. We said, well, if Islam is the perfect religion, is the last of all other religions to come and, perfect all of them, so these guys, must be talking the truth. But I tell you, after the revolution, it broke the heart of every person. It really made every family to mourn in Iran. Around 600,000 Iranians just lost their lives in different areas because of the Sharia law. You imagine that a judge killed his own 2 sons and deceptively also started to cry over their dead body, no grace, we, in that case, we were even more, ignorant than animals, really. When animals love their children, they find a way to rescue their children. But Sharia really shattered the emotion, the relationship in that country. The prisons became, the symbol of separating parents and children from the family and killing them, and slaughterhouses, really. Even though Ayatollah Khomeini called prison a university, but that university, I was in the prison, that horrible prison, and those prisoners who died, they wrote on the walls, "Your university left my children orphan." Oh. I was not a cruel person, I just criticized you. In a nice way, in a positive way. I didn't kill people. Sharia doesn't allow you to criticize the system, to criticize leader. It's just disgraceful, honestly, I'm saying to you. I'm speaking this for 2 reasons. One, because I lived in it. My nation is living in that. My families are living in that. The second, because I am a scholar in Islam. I know that. And I am a scholar in other religions and cultures. I have compared them. There is no grace in Sharia. There is no place for human choice and freedom in Sharia law. And that Sharia destroyed Iran, took that country maybe 1400 years back. And Iranians were so famous in education. That's the logo of Iranians, Their culture is amazing. Before Islam, even women could be leaders there. We had queens in Iran, but just Sharia came to shatter the right of women in Iran, just make them, a tool, a property in the hands of government and those committed Muslim husbands. It's just disgraceful, really.
I mean, the impression that I'm getting here is that it is quite a harsh legal system. There is nothing here which will allow freedom. There's nothing that allow flexibility. There's no such thing as forgiveness, but it's quite a heavy-handed legal system. Is that right? Is that the correct
Absolutely
picture?
True. It's discriminatory too. It is discriminatory, really.
Against who?
Those who have power, Sharia is not applied for them. It really is from the life of Muhammad, comes since the rise of Islam. You see in Islamic history, you see that Muhammad himself he sinned, but he legitimized his sins. For example, I mentioned in a previous episode that he called a girl as his wife and slept with her and didn't like her at night, had sent back to her home in the next day. Well, that's according to the Bible, it's immorality, but he legitimized that. But if a man, a normal Muslim does that, he must be, tortured, he must be killed, theft. For stealing something, they cut the hand of somebody.
Wow.
But the leaders, Iranian leaders, are the greatest thieves in the world. After the revolution, some of them have become those richest men in the world, But these people are starving there, they for hunger they are stealing a bread or something else. Their hands are amputated. So it's discriminatory too. If you're in power, then that power makes you more righteous. And that righteousness also simply legitimizes whatever sin you do. So it's really a problem in everything. Sharia is not relevant to people's life, really. It's irrelevant, really, because something doesn't respect the right of people, that becomes irrelevant to people. People are created with choice.
How does it deal with such people as of different beliefs, different faiths, or even people who deny God? They don't want to even believe any religion, in any God. How does Sharia deal with them?
Well, Sharia, they must be burned. Those who do not believe in God, and there are references in done by Islamic leaders, atheists or unbelievers in God must be burned or killed,
Wow.
And other religions, if they are, categorized as paganism, the followers of those religions must become Muslim, otherwise they have to be killed. There is no choice there. But as Christians and Jews, there is a law there, but again it depends really to the ruling person. In the Quran, according to chapter 9, it says you can pay jizya, money for life every year, to buy your life as male Christian or Jew, and to live one more year. Every year that should be done according to Islamic law. But again, a leader says, I don't need your money, I just need you to become Muslim, as Muhammad did with some of the tribes of Jews, and he said them, become Muslim or I expel you. Become Muslim, or if you do not, I kill you. And it absolutely happened, whatever he said. So these are the treatments toward others. But heartbreaking things really about non-Muslims, even the things are written in the website. There is a pact called the Pact of Omar. It's just in the website, in the books, Islamic books, you can read that. How to treat with Christians and Jews. Very heartbreaking, very, very ungodly, I say to you, really.
And it's quite a strange thing, because, when you talk to Muslims, and I have Muslim friends, they tell me this is the best system. And they often compare it with democracy, and they say, Sharia it's great, it's a wonderful system. It will deal with, a lot of the problems such as gambling and alcoholism and immorality, all these types of things. It will deal with these things, and there's freedom. But the picture that you're painting for me here, it's quite different. No, it's very harsh. Look. And it's this way or no way. The only choice that you have is accepting. Is that right?
You cannot really measure Sharia by gambling. I'm talking about the holistic of life. Gambling, even in there are countries that are not Muslims, they have forbidden gambling.
Yes.
Yes. They know the nature of gambling is destroying it. Even in the Western countries, you see that Christians always complain to the government that gambling is not good in the area. So it's people can decide to stop it. You cannot just take gambling and say because Islam is against gambling, and so Sharia is the best.
It's the whole way of life.
You have to look at the whole way of life. Really. How do you treat your wife?
Yes.
Do you really believe in equal opportunity, really? Do people have a right, really, to choose their own belief? All of them, just 100% of life is that it's not only gambling. Take just an ugly example and say, because Islam is against gambling. And I tell you, even in those Islamic countries that there are, Sharia law ruling, gambling is a problem there.
It's still a problem
Absolutely.
there.
Absolutely. Drinking is a problem. Adultery is a big problem.
It hasn't dealt with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It cannot. So really, grace makes the country and house a university. I remember that I was even in the time of Shah in university, one of our professors, and he was saying to us that in Sweden in that time, a prisoner, he was in the prison, he started to finish his high school in the prison. And he started to finish his doctorate in the prison. And he became one of the really great scholars in Sweden.
Wow.
Prison, freedom, grace prepares people with this. Which prison in Iran really has made people prepare them like that? Which one has prepared people and a great scholar, an example of world really in Saudi Arabian prison or in Sudanese prison. That's just, it's really full of disgrace, Sharia.
And often we hear about so many people that run away from such countries and they come to America or Australia or England to get away from this system or these types of systems, and it really shows.
Absolutely, it's true. You see, after the Islamic Revolution in Iran, millions of Iranians left the country.
They fled.
Only those people say Sharia is good that they just think in theory. They haven't practiced it really. But those who are in Sharia, more than 90% of people will not be happy. And that's why in Iran, Sharia made Iranian more ungodly people. And you're amazed that even many Iranians, that even from those tribes really, they were very religious. They say, we don't believe in God. Because that was the ugly face of Sharia really. Brings the darkness into your life rather than taking darkness out of you.
That was the
God's approach. I mean, we need laws in the countries.
Of course, you need boundaries.
There is law in Australia, there is law in Europe, there is law in America, and people need to live by the law. But the amazing law, for example, Australian law respects everybody. In this country, you can build your mosque in every corner. As Muslims have been investing millions of dollars in this country, or in Europe, in America. But in countries, even without Sharia, in Islamic countries, building a mosque is illegal. It comes to Sharia, it's horrible. It's horrible. You should not raise your prayer voice in the church, so people should not hear that as a Christian. Wow. Or you cannot ring the bell of your church. Your churches must be lower. Your houses must be lower than the house of Muslim. It's just disgrace and disgrace, really.
There's a lot of discrimination. And I think this is really important because not only were you a Muslim, not only did you study these things and you really did aspire to be a devout Muslim, and you were a devout Muslim, but you lived under the system. You lived under the Sharia system, and you've lived under a different system. And now we've spent a good portion discussing the system of Islam, the system of the Quran. Now please tell us about the biblical system, the system of grace. Even if I can call it a system, I probably can't even call it that, but really it's the way of life. Describe that to us, please.
I was a committed Muslim. I wrote one of my books, The Difference is the Sun, and it just, I took it easy. It took 4 years for me to write it. It's a comparison between Christianity and Islam. God is my witness. Anytime I took my pen to write, to compare that, I started to cry.
Why? Why would you do that?
It just broke my heart that I was living in thick darkness, really.
Okay.
And that was heartbreaking. That was breaking my heart. That was breaking heart through me in my relationship with them. That was Sharia, really. And it was making me cry because I was reading about the grace of Jesus. That I was comparing. That book is really starting from history, philosophy, doctrine, social, political, moral comparison. It's just amazing, really. The grace of God in the Bible, even though in the Old Testament God gave law to people, but the core of God's law is the 10 Commandments, is love everywhere. Love your God with all your being. Love your neighbor as yourself. Respect the even animal of your neighbor.
Yes.
Respect your father and mother. If you do not respect them, you have to be killed. But Quran chapter 9, Surah Tawbah says, even your father is not a committed Muslim, he is a moderate one. Oh. Disregard his guardianship. You see the difference. When grace rules over the law, law must follow the grace. And that's why all European countries, you see that there are freedom for people there. And it's coming really from Judeo-Christian values. In grace of Jesus, that grace brings you into the kingdom. You're saved by grace of God. You couldn't be saved by any other way, any other channel but God, through God only. He came and saved you through grace. And then He crowned you as your child. And that grace is always with you. And that grace always is teaching you. You know, after I became a follower of Jesus Christ, sometimes I had oops.
What's that?
Because I was, that curses were in my mouth.
Okay.
Naturally, after a few months, it was coming into my mouth. And I was saying, oops, oh God, I am sorry. The grace of God was with me.
Yes.
Not to curse anybody. Sometimes, you know, in the first months, I was talking to people, I wanted to convince them I was swearing. You know, I said, oops, I should not swear. I just need to rely on the truth and say the truth to people. It's up to them to accept that or not. Grace was with me. Grace was saying to me, look, you just speak your word and people will understand from your faith and confidence that you're speaking the truth.
Yes.
And that grace helped me to respect my wife. Before, according to Islam, according to all commentaries written about the Quran, says your wife is a mute animal. Islam equalizes your wife with animal. You see, Muhammad himself in Hadith is speaking, he's giving instruction about prayer. He said, if you're praying, if your wife is not far enough from you, or a woman, a dog, an ass, a pig, your prayer is not accepted. You have to start it again. You imagine the leader, the great leader of a religion equalizes woman with ass, with pig, with dog. But grace came and said to me, she is exactly like you in the eyes of God. Same hands created her,
Yes.
created you. Same spirit was blown into her, gave her life, and the same spirit gave to you. Can a father and mother see her child or his child and say, this child is better than other one? Absolutely not. Even animals really love their male children and female children the same. They defend themselves. You see,
true.
God has spoken. It makes sense naturally even in the Bible. You need to love, and grace came and taught me great lesson. Grace said to me, you have to love your children. You are not here a dictator to your children. God has given them to you as a gift. Like a flower, you
That's
need to
right.
raise them
Yes.
and give to the world with joy. And that means parenthood. Grace came and said to me, don't only blame other people, look at yourself. Why do you not see a great tree in your eyes and you see a little specks in the eyes of people and just criticize them? That's grace, really.
That's right.
Comes and shatters every discrimination. Every, unjust thing in your life, really. Puts them away and you live according to love and respect. You have the heart of God in you. That's grace.
That's right. Thank you. I think that is such a wonderful explanation, but even you can see the truth of it in your own life, the reality of it in your own life. And I think the same way you've been describing it, that grace is a gift. It's nothing that we deserve. It is a precious gift that has been given by God to us. And it is the grace of God, which is Jesus Christ, which changes us, which brings about in us that type of relationship that God wants us to have, one with another and one with God. And even the Word of God tells us that we have been saved by grace through faith. It is not of ourselves, but it is a gift of God. You know, and I think the important thing is what I'm driving to here between these two models, Sharia and grace, is which one now is able to make us acceptable before God?
It's grace, really. It's, grace relates you through heart to God. Sharia, just the physical thing, tries to make you as a slave in the presence of God, which is not the true God, really. Grace makes you the member of God's household.
Family.
Grace
yes.
relates you to God, really.
Yes.
That's what is the art of God, really. Grace is the art of God's heart, really, toward us. Draws us. Beauty is in the grace. Love is in the grace. You see that, you say, I want him. I want that grace. That's the difference. That's the grace. Only grace is acceptable in Jesus, and that's why people need to give their hearts to Jesus, the source, the God of grace.
And everything that you see in the life of Christ, you mentioned this in another episode, everything that you saw, the way he dealt with people, you loved it. You were so excited about
Absolutely.
it. And it was such an example in your own life. I mean, how was it that Jesus Christ dealt with people? Was it with law or was it with grace?
Amazing. According to Sharia, to be cut in pieces if Jesus followed Sharia. But I imagined him on the cross, that I am crucifying him and he is forgiving me. Oh, that grace just brought the tower of hostility and qisas, eye for eye in my heart down, and said to me, just be purified by the name of the one on the cross, that who wants all people to leave that darkness and come and live in the light of grace.
Yes, and how wonderful it is, Daniel. Thank you so much for being able to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I think it's so important for our viewers to understand this, that this grace, the grace of God, is available for you. Whether you're a Muslim, whether you don't believe in God, whoever you are, that grace is available for you. If you receive the Son, God's Son, Jesus Christ, you will have that grace, that gift, that salvation, that life, as it has been described in the life of Daniel. Please stay in tune for the very next episode of Worlds Apart, and until then, may God bless you.